Great cooking is an art that can surprise and delight us, conjure nostalgia, or transport us. We make pilgrimages to great restaurants. They're where we celebrate accomplishments and major milestones. But a restaurant is also a business. A tough business. It's all too common for beloved restaurants to close because they can't cover their costs. So how do chefs and restaurateurs create these special experiences without going broke? My guests today are Jolyn Chen and Louis Lin. Together, they are the co-owners of Xiao Ye, a restaurant in Portland, Oregon that they opened together in 2023. They are business partners. Louis is the head chef and Jolyn is the general manager, and life partners. They got married in 2024 and held the reception in Xiao Ye. I talked with Jolyn and Louis because they are thoughtful and talented. Xiao Ye, which means midnight snack in Mandarin, has received all sorts of raving reviews and accolades, but also because their restaurant is not some sort of crazy outlier success. As you're about to hear, they came very close to failing and shutting down. Xiao Ye is their dream restaurant. It's also a business. We talked about how they do both. I'm Alex Mayasi. This is Gastronomics. Jolyn and Louis, thank you so much for joining me on Gastronomics.
Thank you. We're so excited to be here.
So before we talk about your restaurant, I first just like to start with a very endearing fact that I learned about you both, which is I believe you first met as badminton partners in high school?
I think it was really close. We actually knew of each other in middle school. Louis is a year older than me, and I think that we kind of just ran in separate circles, but we did play badminton together. We were on the same team, and I think my freshman year, I was a mixed doubles partner with Louis for a hot second before moving on.
Before we got split up because we didn't work well together.
Yeah.
Oh no, that was what I was wondering, is if you immediately worked well together, and it seemed like a sign of things to come in any way.
No, they split us up and then we didn't play together for a long time. I think our games didn't match each other's that well back then.
Okay. But it sounds like you did become good friends enough to certainly keep in touch. Okay. Mm-hmm. I think my next question is probably for Louis, which is, when is the first time that you thought you wanted to open your own restaurant?
Kind of always known that I was going to do it. When I was 16, I had done this project in my English class that was you have to interview someone in any profession and just learn about what their job is like. And so I interviewed one of my friend's parents who happened to own a restaurant. And it was just fascinating for me. And I just loved it. I think going to college was always going to be a stop, a one stop before culinary school. Sorry to all the parents out there. I didn't care. I didn't study I don't even remember what the test is called in order to go to school to become a CPA, right? An accountant or whatever. All my friends in the same major were just stressed out all the time. And I was just hanging out, having a good time.
You were also going to Santa Barbara, which is the biggest party school in California.
Yeah. Yep. I chose that one for a reason.
In the early 2010s, Jolyn graduated from college and moved to Washington, D.C. to work in hospitality. And Louis graduated from culinary school and started working in restaurants. What brought them back together was a new restaurant in D.C. called Rose's Luxury. Jolyn had a meal there. The menu was great and everyone was having fun. Not just the customers, the line cooks and the waiters too. She told Louis, who came and staged at Rose's Luxury. In the restaurant industry, a stage is a short, unpaid internship. It's a way to trade work for training or experience, or to basically audition for a job. Staging at Rose's, Louis says, changed his life.
I've worked in a lot of great kitchens. The stage that I had at Rose's before I worked there was the one that changed my life. If there was one stage that I had that showed me a different way of working, it was that place. I've had a lot of stages that actually defined kind of how I don't want to do things. But I've also had a lot of stages where you're just looking around thinking, especially as a young cook, you're like, dang, everyone is so good at what they do. Everyone is so locked in. Everyone cares. They're all working really hard together. The stages that you walk away thinking, man, I feel like I learned a lot, are always the places that just worked really well together. The team was really good, and not really about the food, for me at least. The food is good and great or bad, whatever, but like it's teamwork.
It sounds like, in theory, the stage is about maybe learning how to cook a different style of food or something more technical. But maybe part of what's most important about a lot of stages is just like being around excellence.
I love that. Yeah, I think that's exactly right.
Louis got a job at Rose's Luxury, which soon was named the best new restaurant in America by Bon Appetit and blew up. Jolyn got a job there too, as a food runner and then as a server. And it showed both of them the kind of restaurant they'd want to open themselves one day.
When you're in the moment, you're just like, you don't even think about it. You're just like, it just feels really good to be in that environment. I just want to work here because if this is how they're doing every single day, it's worth trying.
The thing that drives hospitality people, specifically like front of house people, I think is that feeling of when you're giving someone an incredible experience and you see it, how it changes their night. And I think that feedback is what fuels us also. That a small thing like a candle and something for a birthday, or like we see that they were wavering between two items and only got one. And so we send them a small version of like the other one. And it's like this surprise and delight kind of thing. That's a huge thing that Roses really taught me, that it's small gestures that really matter. Like when we fold their napkin, when they get up to the bathroom, for some reason, it's like, it's not a huge thing. It's free. And I think it just gives them a sense of, oh, they saw me. They really are like watching and making sure I don't have to lift a finger. And I think being seen is such a big thing in this world now, especially within your community. I don't know. There's something about that.
Jolyn and Louis were coworkers and best friends. They started dating and in 2017 moved to LA together. And then during the pandemic, to the hipster foodie paradise of Portland, Oregon. Because of lockdowns and the move to Portland, Louis had time to think. And he started thinking the time was right to start his own restaurant, especially because opening a restaurant in Portland seemed more feasible than in LA. He asked Jolyn for help. She became the interior designer and then a full co-founder and co-owner in a very daunting endeavor. You mentioned earlier that it seemed a lot more feasible to open a restaurant in Portland rather than LA. Could you tell me a bit about why it seemed more feasible in Portland?
I think it's just like, it's a financial thing, and it's all the red tape. Even getting a liquor license here is so different than how it is in LA. I've never gotten one or tried to get one in LA, but you hear about there's a broker involved. It's 6 figures to have one. There's only a specific number out there. So it's a lottery system. And then if you can't get it, then you're not going to make enough money to open that restaurant in LA. Rent there is like insane. They're like $30,000, $40,000 a month. And then here it's 10.
Yeah.
10 for like a big-ish restaurant in our eyes. Just like the numbers are very different. I think when you see restaurants that open in LA, they are backed by very big groups.
There tend to be investors with lots of money.
Like multiple investors, not just like one. Yeah.
So if you're opening a 50-seat restaurant in a city like Portland, I would imagine you're spending about half the cost in LA. And honestly, like the P&L and the business model is the same. You're just going to spend twice as much in LA.
There's a somewhat famous statistic that 9 in 10 restaurants fail in their first year. Is this something that was familiar to you both when you were talking about maybe starting a restaurant?
Yeah, that was like, for sure. We're like, if we could make it past the first year, we should be good, right?
I like that somehow you took this very scary statistic and made it into, if we make it past the first year, then we're fine. Almost just a little bit of a challenge, or like almost somehow a reassurance.
But it is true, though. Like, we are almost hitting our 3rd birthday for our restaurant. And since we opened, we had so many peers drop off, like, since we have opened. And it's, like, really sad. And it's all, like, real fears that we all have. The moment you open doors, you're kind of just afraid that you have to close them at some point because financially it just doesn't work or whatever happens.
And I don't think you get into the space where you're going to open your own restaurant without really believing in yourself. There's a little bit of hubris, like a lot of confidence that like what I'm going to do is going to be better and people are going to like it way more. And there's no chance, like even in the back of your mind, you're like, obviously you never know, right? You're always nervous to put yourself out there.
There are absolutely people opening businesses who are like, what's the hot category? They're only going to start a business if they think there are like favorable trends. Why open a restaurant if you've seen yourself from people you know that it is very tough?
I'm reminded all the time of a quote that our accountant said to us before we opened. He said, if you have $1 million, opening a restaurant is the worst way to make money on that. You could literally just put it into an account or multiple accounts and make just as much money and sit there and do nothing.
Right. Invest money in the stock market, sit on a beach doing nothing and watch the money grow.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Or he also said like $1 million, that's a good salary for 10 years or whatever.
Yeah. Like you can live off of $100,000 and do nothing for 10 years.
For 10 years.
Do you really want to do this? Because this is the worst way. There's no other explanation other than you just want to do it. We are inherently in the restaurant industry, we are creative people. And creative people notoriously don't make really good business decisions because we care too much.
And thank God they don't, right? Like I spent a lot of time talking with economists or reading about economics, and we think incentives are a very powerful tool to understand the world. And that is absolutely true. But like the world is so dependent on people who don't respond to incentives that clearly, right? Like you're here opening a restaurant in defiance of much evidence that it's a really hard approach to making a living and making your way through the world. I've spent multiple years of my life working on books, despite the many data points. That is an incredibly dumb way to make a living. But of course, I don't think any of us want to live in a world without restaurants that people actually care about, not just your standard chain restaurant or books that people have put their heart and soul into.
Yeah, if you think about like the people who own restaurants, the vast majority of them are the ones who just like love to cook or love to feed people. But your mom and pop dumpling restaurant down the street is not doing it because the P&L looks great. They're doing it because they have great dumplings and they just want to feed you.
Yeah.
And if they're good enough and they care enough, like it tends to work out. The people who become really rich off of this, don't look at them. Don't look at them and try to be them, right? Just do your thing. And if you're good at it, it'll happen. It'll work out.
For your restaurant, did you need to raise money? Were you going to a bank with a business plan?
So we were really fortunate. We did have a business plan. We went through and did all of that stuff, but we were able to raise privately with a lot of family stuff. And so we didn't have to go to a traditional bank. We didn't have to go through any outside investment.
Okay. So kind of friends and family fundraising.
Exactly. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier an accountant pointing out all the nice things in life that $1 million could buy you. Is that the ballpark amount that you raised to fund your own restaurant?
Yeah, it was basically to a T. Yeah, I think it ended up being about 1.2 total to build it.
I'm thinking about how I feel about that number. It feels very large. It's not like I thought opening a restaurant would be inexpensive, but that is an intimidating number, I've got to say.
You could totally do it for a lot less. Absolutely. I think the beauty and the sad thing about this industry is that a lot of restaurants go out of business. Sounds awful to say. As a restaurant owner and as someone who wants to do it, like you can get into a space that has a working kitchen, that has chairs and tables already, that has equipment, and kind of go into it with just sort of blood, sweat, and tears, right? Paint everything yourself, build everything yourself, do all that, open really quickly. You can put a lot less money into it. We just happened to get into a space that like basically had never been a restaurant before and wanted to build this vision that we've had for a long time on our own. And I would say, again, we're talking from Portland. If you open our restaurant in New York, it probably would be 3 million. If you open our restaurant in Cincinnati, it would be a little bit less. So it's a lot of money for sure. But ultimately, in the grand scheme of things, as crazy as it sounds, like opening a full service restaurant with a full menu and a full bar, it's actually pretty cheap.
Yeah, I can understand that perspective. But at the same time, was it scary to actually fundraise and borrow that amount of money?
We're going to be paying it back for a long time. Our lease is 8 years. And then we have the option to renew for another 5. And then everyone's like, whoa, 8 years is like really long. I was like, yeah, but we have to make it further beyond 8 to even pay off what we have and also make money beyond that.
It's funny because you'll like get money sitting in your bank account when you raise, right? And as you're waiting for permits and stuff to happen, it's like just sitting there. And then you start construction, and in the span of 4 months, all of it's gone. It just flies away. So
yeah. And we even saved a lot of that money as like a runway to get us to like 6 months without just like trying to figure ourselves out. And that runway,
that went really quick too.
So fast. I was so terrified. I've never seen so much money leave our account so fast.
I assume the idea that you might break even or make a profit on like day 3 of being open would be pretty laughable. Is there some kind of rule of thumb in the restaurant industry, maybe by category, of how long to get to something approaching break even?
I think if you ask like a good seasoned restaurant how long it should take to just break even if you're doing well, I think the number is probably around 3 months.
Yeah.
But to be fair, like our business was either leaking a ton of money or leaking a little bit of money for a year and a half.
Wow.
Yeah, almost 2 years. Yeah.
So Louis and Jolyn had raised $1.2 million and used it to walk a path of maximum resistance, a journey straight into the headwinds of labor shortages and rising food costs and skimpy profit margins. Because if they succeeded, their destination was a cherished dream of running their own restaurant. But many entrepreneurs and artists find that the journey changes them, that surmounting all those obstacles requires sacrificing parts of their vision or themselves, or at least making some concessions to business realities. So I asked them about this collision between their dream and the market. I think often if someone is going to open a small business, they're doing a lot of market research. You know, I'm opening a car wash. I'm going to see how many car washes are in this area. How many people own cars in this area? Are there any trends about whether more or less people over time are spending money on car washes? Is there anything kind of equivalent like that for opening a restaurant?
Yeah, I think when we were like opening up or concepting and early on, we were kind of trying to see like who fits in our category, like who are our competitors or whatever. Obviously, we're eating around the city and we noticed that there's a lot of casual places, like super casual. And then we're like, oh, where's like that date night spot? Where's like the Rose's luxury equivalent?
There weren't enough date night restaurants in Portland, Oregon?
There are a lot of dive bars.
Great for a first date as well.
Breweries.
But, or any date, number date.
Yeah.
Hey, different though.
Yeah, it's a different thing. It's like, where's like the date night? Where's like the celebratory that's not like tasting menu? Like, where's that middle part where it's like you could go for a casual date or you can go for a big anniversary dinner and it both feels really good and valuable. And there weren't too many. I think there were only a few.
Did that change your plans? Were you totally open about type of restaurant and then noticed this kind of opening, or was it a bit of a lucky accident?
Yeah, I think it was a happy accident. And it was like a pleasant surprise too, because we're like, where would we want to go eat? We kind of think about that when we concept, because it's like we want to build something that's for people like us or that have our taste or like want an experience that we're looking for.
If Portland was totally saturated with those types of restaurants, do you think you would have still opened the kind of restaurant you did? Or do you think you would have said, oh, we really need to do a different type of niche that's not as competitive right now?
As silly as it sounds, I feel like we would have done the same thing, because then you look at it and you think, oh, but this market can totally afford to have all these, right? So obviously there's a demand. Obviously a lot of people really want these things. And if there's nothing, you're just like, look what hole we can fill. So let's do it. Let's be one of the few.
It is really interesting because when we were looking for spaces, our broker for like our real estate broker was like, yeah, I'd be more nervous if you guys were like, hey, we're going to open a pizza shop. Because during that era, everyone was opening up a pizza shop, like pizza slice shop, or they'll open like a sit down, nice pizza joint. Sometimes they're like a truck with pizza. And it was just like everyone was opening pizza shops.
That's interesting, because I was kind of wondering whether you considered a kind of interim step. Okay, we'll do catering for however long, do pop-ups, do a food truck and kind of test things out, build a following, and then do a restaurant. Or just do a smaller, don't go for the sit down date night spot yet, do something more casual.
Well, Lewis, it was like during early days, he was like toying with the idea of opening up a wine bar, a really small, I don't know even how many seats you were thinking, like 10 to 12, something that you can manage yourself, that you can just put out the food yourself. And, you know, I think a lot of people have romanticized that idea often. And for me, I was like, that is not the restaurant that you want to do. That's the scared version of the restaurant that you want to do because you're so afraid of doing this full service.
Yeah.
You know, we have 64 seats now. So I'm assuming his dream restaurant is the 64 seat restaurant that we currently have. And, you know, I think like it takes the same amount of effort to open up that 10 seat wine bar than it does opening up a 64 seat full service restaurant. You're still going through the same motions, different components, but same amount of effort, same amount of stress, probably similar money to some degree because it's the economics of scale. Or is that what it's called? Right. The economies
of scale. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever, you know.
Talking my language, yeah.
People talk about this in design because if you build an ADU, that's 800 square feet versus like a 2,000 square feet house, it's still the same thing. You still have to call out the plumber and the same plumber, it's all the same components. It's just a smaller thing, but still the same amount of work, if not more expensive. Right.
Yeah. I was like, we're worried about how expensive it is. Let me just do this small thing. And she like laughed in my face and was just like, you're such an idiot. If you're going to go through the stress, just do the thing that you've always wanted to do. Yeah. Make it big, because if you do a good job, you can actually make money and not kill yourself.
It sounds like what I'm hearing is like, one, actually, maybe a lot of people think that way. And so that actually can end up being more competitive. And maybe also it requires such insanity and hard work to open a restaurant. You might as well just do the thing that's in your heart. Because if you do the thing that your heart's not in, just because it maybe makes more business sense, are you really going to like sweat over it for 3 years to make it a success?
I think that's exactly it. We were told a lot that you opening a restaurant, no matter the size, scope, is really hard. It doesn't matter what you're going to do. So if you're going to do it and you have something that you really, really are passionate about, just go for it, right? Because if you can figure out how to make a food truck work or a pop-up work, you can probably figure out how to make a restaurant work if you have access to funding.
So in some ways, opening their dream restaurant, one that was 64 seats with a full bar and staff and a custom build, was arguably a smart move, a good business decision. But when it came to naming their restaurant and creating the menu, they took a big artistic risk.
Naming a restaurant is so freaking hard because if it feels really heavy at the time. In hindsight, I feel like it's not that serious, really. And Lewis does a good job asking these prompts to help us kind of brainstorm. And he's like, well, what's like a dining experience that is super special to you? So I started thinking like, I really loved my French laundry dinner. That was amazing. Then I really started thinking about it and I'm like, well, the dining experiences that stick with me are these meals that I have with family and friends only. And in our culture, we call them Xiao Ye, which means like midnight snack in Mandarin. And having Xiao Ye with people is like, it's very casual most of the time. So a lot of times it's like after work or, you know, you come home late at night and you rummage through the fridge and you make a little snack. And that's when you kind of debrief with whoever you're with. It's very vulnerable. It's really, really intimate and comforting. And you can really, really be yourself. And I think that's such a special moment. It's so convivial too. And I think that lends itself to the way we want to eat and our menu. Everything's shareable. That's the whole point of it. Everything's family style. Sometimes you don't drop like share spoons. Some people are really annoyed by that. But the whole point of it is to get in there and just don't be so fussy about it. Because you're there for the people. You're there for the food, but it's really about the company, right? And we're just creating this environment for you to have that.
So I think I have two reactions to that. One is that's so lovely and perfect that Xiao Ye became the name. And it has this wonderful meaning. And I'm also like, wait, but have you just made it so much harder for yourselves? Because there are probably only so many people in Portland who know what Xiao Ye means. And you've missed the opportunity, right? To be like Joe's Pizzeria or like Frank's Bistro. Say something in the name that clearly indicates the type of food or conveys information. There are probably some benefits to having a name that people immediately know how to spell. So how do you think about that trade-off, and how do you think it's worked out for you?
We were scared.
Yeah, we were scared.
We were scared.
Because one, it's hard to say. So how are you going to spread the word if you can't say the name? And yeah, we are so aware that people assume we're like a Chinese restaurant, right? And that is not what we do. That's not like the cuisine that we choose. We call ourselves first generation American food because that's more of who we are and how we eat in our palates as first gen. And we recognize that it's very confusing for the people who don't do the research before they come in. But at the same time, it's kind of beautiful. I think we try to meet people where they're at. And I think this is our way of having people try to meet us where we're at. Speaking for Louis, you know, as a Asian chef, a lot of times society or like people just assume and expect you to cook the food of your people, like of your heritage only. And you're like weirdly not allowed to cook anything else. And I think our menu is very defiant in that kind of way that like, no, we're going to do what is true to us.
Could you share a few of the dishes? Because I do think you describe your food as first generation American. Someone might think, oh, you're both Taiwanese Americans. I think fusion food is always expected to be two things, often tacos. It's like Korean tacos. It's like a sushi burrito. And that's very much not what you're doing.
The first bite that you should have at the restaurant every single time are our mini madeleines. Madeleines are like a really dainty French pastry traditionally, but I always wanted to have something that was like that was a little bit savory. And so it's just made with fresh masa that we get from a local company who mills their own corn, and glutinous rice flour, which is a very Japanese, East Asian ingredient. And then we dust it with some sweetened whipped butter and a little bit of jalapeno powder, and it just tastes like cornbread. And something that's super nostalgic to me as a flavor. You're taking ingredients that don't necessarily always go together in a package that feels very French. But then when you eat it, you're like, oh, I know exactly what this is supposed to taste like.
It's a jalapeno cornbread.
Yeah. If you've eaten in any barbecue restaurant, you're going to know what that feels like. And then one of the dishes that probably has defined us the most is one of our pastas. It's a radiatori pasta, which is a pretty like new shape, but it's tossed with a khao soi.
My go-to Thai dish.
Totally. It's like this yellow curry. It's soupy. It's very rich. It's unctuous. It's a little spicy. It's a little sweet. And it's got all this texture built around that. And we just turned it into a pasta where it's not soupy sauce. It's like, I'm going to take sort of traditional pasta making techniques that I know and transport it into a sauce that typically is just sort of more soupy or stewy because it tastes like khao soi. It acts like khao soi. It reads like khao soi. But it's presented in a way that your brain is just like, wait a minute, this is just pasta too.
You said it was scary to choose the name Xiao Ye. But I guess, was there a way that was also kind of swinging for the big leagues? Because I do think with restaurants that really get really great reviews, that people really talk about, that become toast of the town, they're usually not Frank's Bistro. They usually do have something original to say. They're doing something different. Did you feel like that was part of what you were doing with that decision?
I think both of us really just didn't want to dumb ourselves down. We felt really strongly about the name. And the only thing that was holding us back was the fact that it was a word that most people didn't know how to say or spell. And I remember having this conversation with Jolyn in the very beginning, was like, if we wanted to name our restaurant some random French word, no one would care. They might not know how to pronounce that either, but they'd be okay with it. Like, why are we so okay with a trattoria? We all know what that is now, but like 30 years ago, you didn't. So if we're going to say not use this word, we're doing ourselves a disservice because it's what we want to be. And if people can't figure it out at some point, that doesn't say anything about us.
We could have easily named it Midnight Snack. But the reality is, Xiao Ye is such a special word, and it means, it's a specific word in Mandarin that can only be conveyed by that word. It just means so much more to us. And I think the longer we're in business, the more we understand how important your point of view is. And that is the thing that will differentiate you from other restaurants in the world. It's just how strong is your point of view? How unapologetic are you about who you are and what you want to share with the world?
There's an important idea in the startup world called product market fit. The idea is that you can create an amazing product or service, but if there aren't enough people who want it and are willing to pay enough for it, then you'll never succeed. So achieving product market fit is everything for a new business. For Jolyn and Louis, they had to go through a similar journey to achieve what you could call menu market fit. In order to create a menu that stood out without being too niche, with prices high enough to pay the bills but not so high that customers balked, they had to make a big change to their original vision.
So when we first opened, we had this beautiful idea that the last course that you would have for dinner is this big main course, if you will, right? So a multi-component dish, let's say like a whole fish or like this like grilled piece of meat that ends up, you have a bunch of accoutrement like you would at a Korean barbecue restaurant or something. And it's this very convivial thing where we wanted people to get in there for the last meal and just like enjoy this whole thing with their friends. And we charged a fair amount of money for those things, right? In the between 50 and $80 for any one of these dishes. And so I think what we realized was the perception of the restaurant very quickly went from, oh, this is a really nice restaurant to like, this is only a special occasion restaurant, because a table for two that's celebrating anniversary is going to scan the menu and think, whoa, like, why is there a $60 half a chicken? We can't afford that, right? Let's go when we can bring more people, or let's go when we have an even bigger thing to celebrate. And so there was this sentiment that we were a nice restaurant that was only special occasion. And we really wanted to change that. And so even though it was a huge part of the reason why we wanted to open the restaurant and make the menu the way it was, we ended up getting rid of that whole section and basically turning it into a normal entree section, right? Where you have a classic protein and a sauce or whatever. And the cap for that is now at $45. So the most expensive dish that we have is $45. People order the same, but they don't look at that number and think, well, you're really expensive. They actually look at everything else as a whole and think, wow, it's actually really reasonably priced.
Wait, so on that old menu, was it the case that people totally could have ordered other entrees that were not nearly expensive, but just merely having that $80 dish on there as an option meant that people were maybe inclined to just see you as a really special occasion restaurant and not come in as often?
Yeah, it really put us away from this neighborhood restaurant concept that we really wanted to be. And it put us into just like, we're a fine dining, fancy restaurant that you can't bring kids to. And changing that menu, we almost never have people comment about how expensive we are anymore. But everything else above that large section is the same. Same dishes, same prices, same portions.
Yeah. On one hand, I want to apologize on behalf of all customers because we're dumb. But on the other hand, I do think like all the decisions restaurants make are kind of signals about what type of place it is. And so it's not crazy for people to have seen, oh, there's an $80 dish on the menu. This is a certain type of restaurant. That makes a lot of sense.
It's funny because like, let's say you're going to go get a burger, fries, and a drink combo at a restaurant. Let's say the burger, fries, and the drink cost $22 as a combo. That feels expensive. Oh, $22 for a meal, like at a casual restaurant, that feels like a lot. If they charge $10 for the burger and $6 for the fries and $4 for the drink, and you're spending $20, that all of a sudden feels like a very reasonable thing.
Yeah. And maybe plus $2 for avocado, plus $1 for bacon.
Exactly.
Plus $2 for
you might get
jack cheese.
Extra sauce on the side or something like that. Yeah.
Did you ever have a dark night of the soul during the first year or these first years of opening and running your own restaurant?
What does that mean?
Oh, this is like a cliche of movies, like a moment when all hope is lost. But then, of course, you find your courage and you go through with it.
Oh, so
at least
many.
That's how bad Hollywood screenwriting works, is my understanding.
Yeah. No, for sure. I can definitely see that. A lot. So our wedding weekend was basically just after a year of being in business. And we had hosted the wedding at the restaurant the night before. It was a Saturday night and we were working, but we had our family in our private dining room to have dinner. And it was like a month after we had really realized that we could go out of business, like actually go out of business. And that was probably the hardest service I've ever gone through, because it was like this beautiful thing of having all of our family here right at the tail end of having maybe one of the hardest months mentally that I'd ever had, realizing like, oh, what I'm doing is completely wrong. Like what we're doing is just, we have to change it like now.
I'm so sorry to hear this. You told me before that you'd gotten married in Xiao Ye in the restaurant, and I was hoping it was this beautiful moment as like the restaurant was flowering and it was celebratory. And that's such the messier reality of real life, that you were celebrating your love in the restaurant that was your dream restaurant, but also struggling with the reality of, will we make it financially?
It was really beautiful. It's actually very poetic. They should make a movie out of it.
Okay. Do you have ideas for who should play you?
Oh, no. Who? Oh, gosh.
That's good. The people who know what Hollywood actor should play them in a movie, I don't think those are trustworthy people. So I appreciate that answer. Yeah. Don't spend time thinking about it.
Don't think about it.
Yeah. After this moment where you were really facing the reality that you could go under, did you have to change a lot about how you ran the restaurant, or what did change to get you to a better place?
That was really the beginning of the big shifts that we started to make. So a couple months later, that was when we decided we were going to change the menu structure that we talked about before. That was when we decided we were going to do brunch because we just needed a little bit more cash every week. That was when we started to look at our sort of restaurant labor structure to try to make it more efficient. That was when we realized the status quo wasn't going to work. But yeah, that was the turning point in the film where you start to you see the jump cuts of everyone like working feverishly to try to figure out. Yeah, that was exactly when that happened for me.
I know Anthony Bourdain has this famous quote about how brunch is the worst. Is that this kind of real concession that most chefs, most restaurateurs really don't want to be in the brunch business?
It's tough. It's a really hard service.
Yeah.
For multiple reasons. If you're a dinner restaurant normally and then you have brunch service, probably half your team works the dinner service right before brunch the next morning. And so it's a difficult energy shift. And like, we're night people. We wake up later, we sleep later. And so you have to be up, for a 9 o'clock shift. It's really difficult. And then for the kitchen, it's a whole different menu. So we have to have space for these specific things. The whole setup is different. It's just like, if we didn't have to do it, I wouldn't do it.
It's a lot of extra work for not necessarily a huge amount of extra revenue.
Yeah.
It's worth it.
It's worth it. That's the thing.
But it's worth it.
Is there one or two other examples of what you changed in response to this realization?
We learned how much in sales would afford us what size team, if that makes sense. And so we just realized we had to cut down a lot. So that was the number one thing, is we have to know where to spend our money. And we weren't spending our money well. Like if you hire a prep cook versus like having your sous chef or your chef de cuisine or someone doing the same amount of work, you're basically paying someone twice as much to produce the same product. So you're not utilizing their talent, but you don't have the ability to do anything different because you can't afford anything else.
Also, like your kitchen line, you had 4 cooks when we first opened. Now we only have 3 stations. So we dropped 1 person and you restructured the menu to make it work for 3 versus 4.
Kind of opposite question. Was there a moment where you really felt you had made it or you were going to make it? You felt confident about the future of the restaurant?
Is that like now? Lewis? As we're approaching our 3rd birthday.
And I should note, in your first year, you got all kinds of accolades. But of course, as you've said, this was during a period where still you were struggling and you realized you had to make big changes. So
we were really hoping that accolades and attention and media stuff was going to be the thing that made us go, and learned very quickly in that first year that like those things don't do anything. They don't do anything for us. They might do stuff for other people, but it just wasn't going to work for us. So I would say like last year, at the end of the year, we had a couple of good months and we were looking at it and we were like, whoa, we were not prepared for this. We got our butts kicked. Like December was crazy. And we were like, man, like that was insane. But everybody knows that January, February, March, April, those are the really hard months to get through in any city. So when those months happened, those months ended up being pretty good. And pretty good for us was like just a little bit better than what we were doing before. And so like in my head, my gear started working and being like, okay, this is a 15% increase, like growth of 15%. If this carries for the rest of the year, whoa, like maybe we're okay. Oh my gosh, is this actually finally happening? That was the breakthrough for me.
I also feel like I should tell you that famous statistic about 9 out of 10 new restaurants failing in their first year. Some researchers have looked into that, and it seems to be a myth. And actually, maybe the statistic is more like 17% or 20% fail in their first year.
Okay. That's not bad.
Yeah.
How many fail within their first 3?
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't know. But yeah, I was like, I don't know if this makes you feel better or worse, because now that you're over that first year.
We had a lot of friends and industry vets in our first 2 years when we were really struggling. Just tell us like, hey, you're still open. You're still doing okay. Once you get into year 3, which we're almost done with at this point, like that's when things really happen. And so you just kind of got to slog through the first 2 years, apparently. Now we know.
I've spoken to entrepreneurs who I think advice they received was like, most of success when you're starting a new business is just not dying, and not dying for long enough that eventually you do have that time that you figure things out and things start clicking.
It is so true. I remember like saying like, this is a war of attrition. It's just like, we just need to make it, just buy yourself time, because I think the thing I didn't realize is how much time it takes for people to find you. Even in a small city like Portland, like the amount of first timers that still walk through and they like live a couple blocks away is like insane. Like they've like kind of heard about it, but like this is the first time they're coming in. And it's like, we're almost 3 years old and they're always shocked. They're like, how has it been 3 years? And we have no idea.
We've talked both about ways that you haven't really thought too much about efficiency or the business side of running a restaurant. We've also, of course, talked about changes you've had to make in the course of opening and running the restaurant. At this point, almost 3 years in, do you feel like Xiao Ye is your dream restaurant still?
I think so. Because I'm feeling way more optimistic now, it's like, I'm feeling great about it. I think this is where we were meant to be. I think that we still have a ways to go. And I love that we're in a position that we haven't capped ourselves either. We're doing great now, but I'm even more optimistic for the future.
That's amazing. I think you said something like, I feel like exactly where we're supposed to be. I mean, how few people can say that about their work? That seems really special to me.
We changed a lot of the stuff that we did, but we never changed who we are. And we always stuck to our guns and the things that we really believed in. And so, yeah, like it is the dream restaurant because we never let go of that dream. And we're just so lucky that it seems to be working out and that we haven't had to dilute ourselves and change who we are.
We've thought about it, though, multiple times.
Well, I'm so glad you've gotten to continue running the restaurant that you wanted to open and share with people. So I hope that the financial part continues to look better and better, but that also it continues to be a really satisfying experience and something that you're passionate about. So thank you so much for joining and talking with me.
Thank you. It was so much fun.
Thanks.